So we all saw the headlines a while back. The chaos at IndiGo passengers stranded, huge delays, even pilot protests. And the official story was, a simple glitch or some miscommunication.
The easy answer.
Exactly. But the sources you brought to the table paint a much more alarming picture. So today, our mission is to dig in and show this wasn't just a glitch.
Not at all.
It was a catastrophic systemic failure. The analysis calls it a 4-layer architectural collapse.
And what's so fascinating is that any enterprise, an airline, a tech company, anything, is really held up by 4 key pillars.
Okay.
Think of them as the blueprints: business strategy, processes, people, and technology.
Yeah.
When all 4 of those crumble at once, you get what happened here, a total breakdown.
All right, so let's unpack that. Pillar 1, the business architecture. The core problem here, according to the research, was this growth at all costs mindset.
Right.
They were prioritizing profit and just, market dominance over everything else, over duty, over long-term stability. It was about scaling the network, not governing it.
And that flawed strategy immediately creates the next failure, which is in the process architecture. The sources call it blind change management.
Blind change management. What does that mean in practice?
Well, they rolled out these aggressive new schedules and routes with almost no real risk analysis. They were asking, how can we be more efficient?
But they weren't asking the most important question.
They weren't. They failed to ask, what happens to the entire system if this one part hits a snag? What happens to our people?
And that friction brings us straight to the people architecture. This is the big aha moment for anyone listening. The idea of algorithm over empathy.
That's it.
The system basically reduced its most critical assets, the pilots, to just data inputs on a spreadsheet. So when the scheduling algorithm flagged fatigue warning...
They were just overridden. The warnings were ignored because they got in the way of the efficiency targets.
Data cannot replace dialogue. That's the quote that really stands out.
It is. You can't automate professional judgment. You can't automate resilience.
Yeah.
They were listening to the spreadsheet, not the people.
Which brings us to the last pillar, technology. You'd think the tech would help, right?
You would. But it was built to chase those same flawed metrics efficiency, not resilience. So the automation actually made the bad decisions happen faster.
It turbocharged the problem.
Exactly. The system was so rigid that one small delay would lock everything into a failure loop. It amplified the error instead of fixing it. The tech literally made a bad process worse.
So these 4 pillars collapse internally. But how does this spiral into a national issue? That gets into the macro risks.
Right. First up is what's called external signal failure. The organization just wasn't built to listen to the outside world.
So they weren't just ignoring their people.
They were ignoring the regulators, too. They failed to integrate evolving fatigue rules and compliance mandates they were legally required to follow.
And the reason they didn't fix it was because of the second macro risk, broken feedback loops.
No closed-loop system at all. There was no mechanism to test how these new schedules or the new tech were actually impacting morale or safety or even customer trust.
No sensing, so no responding.
That's it. And finally, you have to look at the role of what's called market immunity.
The monopoly dynamic.
Yes. When you have government-enabled market dominance, that competitive pressure to self-correct just isn't there. Why spend the money on a fundamental fix if no one can really challenge you?
So when you tie it all together, what's the big lesson here?
It's that the real purpose of a strong enterprise architecture is alignment. It's about making sure your strategy, your rules, your people, and your systems are all working together towards sustainable integrity. A healthy system has to be able to sense, respond, and adapt.
Which leaves a really provocative question for everyone listening. If a major company like IndiGo can break across all 4 layers at once, you have to ask yourself, what hidden fractures might exist in your own organization's architecture? And, more importantly, what feedback loops would you start building right now to make sure your people never get reduced to just data points?